Instagram because the venue's not ready. Well, that's a big mistake because you want to show people the progress. You want to show people all the different steps that you're making. Some people look at it as imposter syndrome. I look at it as filming the journey. I'm filming an imperfect person because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. What's going on, guys? My name is Brian Waldron, and in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the beginner's guide on how to start a profitable event space in 2025. For those who are new to the channel, my name is Brian, did over $3.5 million in 4 years with brick and mortar event space sales. Now we run and operate the #1 event space coaching consulting company in America that has now helped over 600 clients find, fund, and fill your own event space. Let's get into it. Now, I think it's super important to note the data, right? So according to Google Trends, search volume for party venue and birthday venue are literally at an all-time high for 2025. I'm gonna include a screenshot right over here just to kind of show you guys the proof, but it has never been higher. So you don't have to believe it from me and think that I have some type of hidden agenda or whatever the case may be, but the search volume for this has never been higher, obviously, besides the whole COVID bust. Now, personally, why do I think that's the case is because number one, well, you know, the world is expanding. You know, a lot of people ever since COVID, they're trying to have a lot more events. They're trying to collaborate and corroborate a lot more. So it just obviously they need places to put these things. Me, myself personally, I know I get invited out to a lot of these different events, and every single time they have these events, they have to book these conference centers or these venues or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times these things can be a lot of money. Why aren't you cashing out for it, right? So that's the big reason why 2025 is the best year to start an event space business. And frankly, I don't think it's gonna slow down anytime soon because this is a need-based business. This has been a business that's been around since the dawn of time. There's been a business that's been around since biblical ages. And I mean, frankly, it's a need-based business. You know what I'm saying? People don't have to go on vacation. People don't have to travel, things of that nature. But a lot of times when they do wanna have an event like a baby shower or birthday party, they have to rent the space. If you simply do not have the space in your own home or whatever, you have to rent your space. There's no other option around. Now let's go into the size requirements of this, right? So when you're kind of looking at renting a space for your own event space business or whatever the case may be, what are some things that you want to kind of look into, right? So let's look at size, let's look at location, and let's look at rent. Okay. Typically for rent, I'll just kind of start with the money. We like to look at less than $30 a square foot. $30 a square foot per year. That's typically where we like to kind of stick around. Now, obviously everything's negotiable, so we could kind of play around with that number, but no more than $30 a square foot per year is what we really like to play. Before, at a certain point, it used to be $20 a square foot, but ever since COVID, and just to kind of show you the demand with everything, prices have gone up, obviously. Every single year prices go up, utilities go up, whatever the case may be. So $30 a square foot is really kind of like the sweet spot for us. Next, when it comes down to location, now I'm not too picky, on location. One of the biggest things that I like to look at is, okay, cool, foot traffic. Yeah, foot traffic is great. You know, a great area is great, but they're not necessary. That's the thing, right? They're not necessary, Because here's the thing, right? A lot of times people talk about, oh, I want to be in this best area. I want to be in a good area. I want to be around all these different, major points. But here's the thing, right? When people are having events, they're not traveling outside. They're going to the venue, and that's it. They're not going to all these different locations like, oh, well, we have to go see downtown, or we have to go see this, or we have to go see that. That's a whole different business. It's a whole different ballgame. When they're coming to an event, they're going exclusively to that event. They're going to see their mom get married, or they're going to go see their cousin's baby shower, or whatever the case may be. They're going to that specific event. So all that stuff about location does not really matter. For me personally, I place the most amount of emphasis on rent and size. Now, when it comes down to size, typically on the low end, I'll go as low as 1,500 square feet, and on the high end, as high as 4,500 square feet, maybe even 5,000. So with that being said, that's kind of the sweet spot for me, and that's where a lot of our clients will stick in. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking like, oh my God, like 1,500 is so small. Okay, cool. Well, just for perspective, I've made a ton of money off spaces that were just 2,000 square feet. We have clients who do $20,000 a month off 700 square feet. Now, we can talk about that a little bit later in terms of like how our clients are doing that and whatnot, but that's typically how it gets done, okay? Now, what do you look for in a venue to keep startup costs low, right? What are some non-negotiables that we look for in a venue? Let's see, non-negotiables, startup costs. Now, when it comes down to the non-negotiables to keep startup costs low, some of the bigger things that I look at are number one, minimum viable product. When it comes down to a minimum viable product, I like to make sure that there isn't too much work that needs to go into a space. So for example, I'm not taking a space that I gotta like put down a whole bunch of flooring and I have to go ahead and put down and like break down walls or whatever the case may be. I'm not here to do all that. I'm here to go in, paint, walls, flooring, whatever the case may be, and then I'm in. I'm good. I'm getting in $20,000, $30,000 and I'm done. Right? A lot of people take on these big build outs. They're coming now and putting $100,000, $200,000 and it just does not make sense simply because, well, you don't know if you're going to do well with this business. You know, if you don't have like a mentor or if you're doing this for the first time or whatever. I've seen people lose everything when it comes to venues. And obviously not an ESC, but I mean, I've seen people like really go into this business not knowing anything and try to do it on their own, and they come out losing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and then they want to kind of try to join ESC after that, kind of thinking like, oh, well, you know, I'm trying to right the wrongs from before. Well, you probably should have thought about that before. And if you are trying to avoid that mistake, definitely make sure you hit the link in the description. Definitely apply to work with us so we can get you to that next level without all those costly mistakes, okay? And this is obviously not to like, you know, beat down anybody who doesn't believe in mentorship or anything like that, but mentorship is obviously the #1 shortcut to success, okay? So another thing that we look at besides the MVP is a good relationship with the landlord, okay? So a lot of times a landlord could kind of make or break the deal because, you know, they're not willing to help out, or they're not willing to add contingencies or anything. I was really lucky during COVID when I had 3 leases that all my landlords were willing to help me, so that at that point I can go ahead and expand the business, work on the business without being crushed by the rent. They all worked things out. They all gave me contingencies. They all gave me rent concession so that while the business wasn't operational during COVID, we were still able to kind of keep the lights on and stuff like that till eventually to the point where the business was back on its feet. Now, boom, we can take a step forward, okay? So with that being said, right, you definitely want to have a good relationship with the landlord. One more thing that I really like to look at when I keep startup costs low is progress over perfection. A lot of times people want to get into this business and they want to do everything at once, right? They want to like, okay, cool, I want the nicest venue because I seen Brian post it on YouTube, or I seen one of his clients post it on YouTube. I want the nicest venue, I want all the furniture, I want all this, I want that. And they're prioritizing perfection over progress and they're not making any headway. A lot of our clients that we work with in Event Space Leads and even our upper level premier, with that being said, what we have is that they're gonna go in and they're gonna do exactly the minimum of what needs to be done just to get the business off the ground so that we can start looking at the data, start looking at the numbers, and then at that point, boom, we start really iterating and making sure that, okay, cool, these things are in place. Now we can shoot forward and we can expand and look at the data and keep growing. What does that mean? For example, hey, Brian, I don't want to post on Instagram because the venue's not ready. Well, that's a big mistake because you want to show people the progress, right? You want to show people the build out. You want to show people all the different steps that you're making through the tile work, through the GCs, through looking at the venue, things of that nature. And some people look at it as imposter syndrome. I look at it as filming the journey. I'm filming an imperfect person because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. Right? I'm building a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm building a plane on the way jumping off the cliff. You know what I'm saying? With those things being said, I really want to make sure that I'm documenting all those things. So that's why I really prioritize progress over perfection. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is how are we going to get our first few bookings even before the grand opening, right? So one of the first few things that I want to talk about, right? First few bookings. So first and foremost, contrary to popular belief, I really don't care for grand openings. I think it's a waste of a date, but you know, suit yourself. As some people want to do it, some people don't. I have no ill will towards it. If you want to get it done, get it done. Cool. For me, what I love to do is I like to do 150 pieces of content, okay, coupled with ads. And that's really the secret sauce and the moneymaker a lot of times when clients come into Event Space Leads. Now, or Premiere, excuse me. A lot of times what we're gonna do before a client is even starting ads is we're gonna make sure they're doing 150 pieces of content. Because here's the thing, right? Even if you go ahead and do the ads, what's gonna happen is that the CPLs are gonna go through the roof. So for those who don't know, CPLs are cost per lead, are gonna go through the roof, and then you're gonna be like, oh my God, why do my ads not work? Well, it's because you're a brand new business where nobody knows you. So when they see you run an ad, guess what? They're not gonna trust you. But if you couple that with the content, well, now the CPLs are gonna go down. And you're gonna be able to get those same customers, those same eyeballs, right, for a lot cheaper, okay? That's the secret sauce right there. So you gotta do both. It's not, which is why I don't even let a client run ads until they go ahead and do this type of content, because that's the biggest difference right there. And then once the ads turn on, you can get really, really good cost per bookings, cost per appointments. And then once the open houses appointments are there, they go ahead and sell them through the script that we have in the Event Space Elites, and then they start making money. I've yet to see a client in Premiere not make money with the same exact script. And if you're not in ESE, make sure you hit the link in the description. We could teach you the same process and we could go from there, right? Now, when it comes down to the furniture marketing, the software, right? Okay, cool. So we have furniture, we have marketing, and we have software. Now, I'll start with software because that's the easiest one. We actually have our own software in Event Space Elites that's completely for free. It's for sure. So we have our own software in Event Space Elite, so you can go ahead and just use that. It's completely for free for all our clients who are in Premiere. But with that being said, when you have your software, the software does all the invoicing, the bookings, the lead management, all that stuff. So I'm not even gonna spend a lot of time on that. With the marketing, it's really as simple as Facebook ads plus organic content. That's like really the easiest thing. And we've just seen that work really, really well. That's all we focus on. We just do Facebook ads and organic content. We don't even use Peerspace anymore. We don't use Gigster. Well, Splacer went into business, but all these like Wedding Wire, The Knot, Event Active, whatever the case may be, we don't use any of those things because you don't own that data. So it's like, what's the point of even doing it in the first place? Okay. When it comes down to furniture, we have our event rental starter pack in the roadmap where it tells you the exact pieces of furniture that you're gonna go ahead and want to use so that you can go ahead and get started with your business. So things like, tablecloths, I'll just kind of give you guys a few. Tablecloths, napkins, centerpieces, backdrops, okay? Backdrops, pedestals, those are big ones. So these are just some common ones that we typically recommend for our clients. And you can get these things for, a couple $1,000 or whatever the case may be. Like I mentioned in the roadmap, we have the starter pack where you can just if you have a low budget, you can just start with these items right there and you can start building out your stuff. But that's essentially how it kind of goes down, right? Now, when it comes down to the furniture marketing and the software, right? So once these things get plugged in together, obviously things break, right? There's a lot of operational things that happen where it's like, oh my God, one of the biggest things that I always tell people is that sales cures all, okay? You always want to focus on the sales, right? You can't get distracted with other things like family and friends and this and the third. Like I've had clients do really, 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 really well. And then, something happens in their family and they're just like, oh my God, like I have to focus on that. Well, you can't fix these problems if you're broke. You know what I mean? So I'm all for standing on that. That might be a contrary belief, but at the end of the day, I can't help anybody if I don't have any money. You can't pour from an empty cup. So that's one of the biggest things that I tell people, hey, look, listen, compartmentalize everything. I have a business, and just because I may be young or whatever the case may be, does not mean that I don't have my own problems that I have to deal with. Things happen, people get sick, people don't feel good, families, things happen, but you always have to focus on the business, right? And sales cures all. How much should you expect to spend and make? That's a great question, right? So typically when people join ESE, we like to recommend $30,000 to $60,000 in available funds to get the event space up and running. Now, obviously that doesn't have to be your money. That could be form of credit, or cash if you want to work with cash, whatever the case may be. $30,000 to $60,000, that's typically what we recommend. Probably, honestly, even closer to 40. So kind of like 40 to 60,000 just to kind of get things going or whatever the case may be. Now, with that being said, right, that's gonna go into build out costs. That's gonna go into furniture costs. And that's gonna go into move-in costs, right? So move-in costs being first and last month security, furniture being tables, chairs, etc. And then build out being floors, painting, lighting, etc. Okay? So now with that being said, right, how much should you expect to make? Well, typically we like our clients to break even, which is amazing, right? Break even in 3 to 6 months, which is actually as an investment vehicle is phenomenal. Think about how many times people buy real estate and they don't make money for 30 years, right? You're breaking even in this model in 3 to 6 months, right? And we've got it down so much to a science where it's just kind of okay, cool. As long as you hit these touch points, it can probably be done in half that time, which is why we say 3 to 6 months. I've seen clients get up and running and make that kind of money in a month and a half. Just because they were not playing, they listened to everything in the steps, and then that's it. But yeah, you can, worst case to worst, you can honestly break even in 3 to 6 months, as long as you don't get distracted and stupid stuff like that. You can break even in 3 to 6 months, and then kind of be at 10K, 20K a month from that point. Okay. Okay. Now, what are some common beginner mistakes to avoid, right? Now, these are, I've made a whole video on that, like do's and don'ts, right? But like common mistakes, right? So some common mistakes would definitely be like falling off the horse. That's a big one. Falling off the horse, just people getting distracted by life. That's a big one that I see. Another big one that I see is just losing focus. You know, like I said, sales cures all. Sales cures all. And like people get distracted by like, you know, oh my God, like this person said this about my venue, or I'm not too sure how I should operate here, or whatever the case may be. Well, this is why you have a mentor, right? This is why you tap in. This is why you stay close to the fire. Because I've seen a lot of people just kind of, and even in mentorships that I'm in, right? Like I've seen people that I started at the same pace with, and now they're here and I'm here, or maybe even they're here and I'm here, right? And it's just like, well, they just stayed focused, you know what I'm saying? They found one model that really, really worked well for them. And then at that point, they just kind of like took it and blew it up, right? So with that being said, you really want to make sure that you're not losing focus, right? Number 3, right, is like I was just saying, listen to your mentor, right? If you don't have one, get one. Because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of like little mistakes and little innuendos and things of that nature that you're just not going to be aware of, where at that point it's going to knock you off the horse. And they all kind of come down to the same thing, right? Like if you don't listen to your mentor, you're going to fall off the horse and then you're going to lose focus. You know what I mean? And I mean, honestly, everything else just kind of falls in line from that point on, because then it's just kind of like, well, you know, I listened to my mentor, you know, I didn't fall off the horse and I stayed focused. Well, it's just sticking to the plan at that point. 2 + 2 = 4. That's that from that point on. Guys, I really hope this video was helpful. Again, my name is Brian. If you are interested in work with Event Space Elites, definitely make sure you click the link in the description to apply to work with us so we can get you to that next level. Let's get it. Let's go.